welcome to Satsang. Today's public service announcement from the field is withdraw your attention from what you do not like. Withdraw your attention from that which you do not like. Many months ago, it said, "You're not living the lives you wish to live because you are busy feeding the lives you don't want to live." Ultimately, a yogi on the verge of vairagya, of total dispassion into uncolored equanimity, moves into pratyahara, a withdrawal of all of the senses. Means withdrawal from the news. Withdrawal from their opinions and withdrawal from your own opinions. And find comfort and contentment in, I have no idea what's happening here. And I have nothing to say about it. On the other side of the discomfort of I don't know is an abiding delight, bliss in I don't know. Withdraw your attention from what you dislike. The world has always been the world, and now you leave the world for the world. Let it be. It has always been this way. And when you withdraw your attention from what you think you know, it can become, in a manner of speaking, it will appear to you to become what it is. And you will recognize it in that moment for what it has always been, and not ever once what you had said it was. never once been what they say it is. No matter how loudly they proclaim it. You just resign from the debate. And you will know your success in this because it will seem to you, it will appear as though you have entered a different dimension of experience, of so-called reality. Each one of you, I know, has had these glimpses where we could say perhaps the reflected light of the world, light reflected off of objects, seems to somehow shift where it has its own independent effulgence. The so-called former objects of perception now shine with their own light. And this light is the same as the light of the one that perceives them. And very common that in your experience, everything in a moment will seem brighter. But first, we must withdraw our attention from that which, well, it's such a strong word, but that what you hate. So this is essential and not easy because it is a bit of a compulsion for us. Regarding over and over through a lens of past, painting past on present, and it creates for us a sense of familiarity. In that familiarity, a false sense of comfort. It isn't comfortable, actually, though, is it? Huh? So what is familiar is generally is not comfortable, in fact. Gently and with persistence, withdraw your attention from I know, from I'm right. Even if only as some kind of adventurous experiment, just to see for your own self. Because maybe to you, I sound like a crazy person. So see for your own self what happens when you stop making it what it is with I know. Hmm?
Last our last satsang was very helpful for me. We were talking about shame. um, and if it's all right with the group, I had a follow up about it. You said before that something to the effect of. Sorry, one second. You said before my video seems to be going off, but I'm just going to continue. Um, that something to the effect of shameful action stems from one who's seeing behind the lens of shame, or only one who is shameful engaged in, or has shame engages in shameful action. Um, and the question is, how does seeing from behind the lens of shame compel one to engage in shameful action? What's the link there? And this is like an ongoing inquiry for me. Um, I can't understand like why just because someone would be seeing behind that lens, they would then be compelled to engage in shameful action. And also, how does it relate to objectification in the general sense of the word, meaning holding oneself as subject and everything else as object?
Yeah, it's right at the heart of it. Hmm. So perhaps you'll allow me to just say it like this, that from the seed of shame, what grows is of shame. I don't know theologically, but my gut sense is this is what's meant by original sin. And the sense of separation that actually invites us karmically, you would say, in a different tradition, into the human birth in order to experience sin, misunderstanding, karma, avidya, blindness, in order to make our way back to truth. So we're born into this confusion. Okay, so what grows from the seed is of the seed. And so what will grow and emanate from the seed of shame will be shame. And the shame is a particular interpretation, misinterpretation, I will say, of separation. Of having turned outward, turned the attention outward. Turning the attention outward is objectification, yes? So, turned inward to one's own self, there is one as existence, Sat Chit Ananda. Turning now the attention, the focus of attention outward, it seems that now there are two, subject and object. this subject and object now give birth to a third, that gives birth to, mixing all of the traditions, the 10,000 things of Buddhism. The duality, and a sense of you, a sense of you that calls itself I, that is in the world. The emanation of I, somehow imbued with the spark of consciousness, this subject, imbued with the I sense, now is perceiving itself as separate from the world. And it's magical almost, it's a mystery, like how did it forget that at first it was one? And so quickly the attention turns to two as part of two. The subject itself is object on the screen of awareness. But I don't know how, but somehow imbued with the I sense. Complete with the five senses. And somehow a sense of being independent operator in the world. So let's just give it some reference because, it can become a bit confusing. But last night you dreamt, and you and the mind of the sleeper created a version of you. Probably also was called Andrew. And this Andrew, the character in the dream, the hero, the protagonist, is a figment of the mind of the sleeper, isn't it? And what of the world created in the mind of the sleeper also? So there's subject and so many objects. And so the character has this I sense, doesn't it? And operates within the world it perceives. So this is it. And then the world and the I is objectified, you see? It's not like a crime against consciousness. It's not even actually a problem because, is it a sin to dream? No. No. But being lost, identified as the dream character, as the I sense that is subject, there arises suffering just through the identification. And the suffering itself arises because identifying with subject creates limitation. I and world. World for me, world against me. There's a sense of limitation, and this limitation is itself the ground of suffering. But in the mind of sleeper, what limitation is there? Only the extent of one's own sleeping imagination, let's say. I don't know. So somehow life is breathed into subject, and subject imagines the same life breathed into objects, and a drama ensues. Time and space itself is created as the field of the drama and requisite to what we call experience. Experience meaning beginning, middle, and end. Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. Experience requires space and time, contrast, arc of narrative, the I sense moving through the world. Huh? So this is objectification, not as a problem. Remember, duality isn't a problem, no more than a mirage in the desert is a problem. It's the believing it that causes trouble for you. An actor screens for a part, a role, to play a character. The role is given. The actor takes the stage. The actor is so in the character, becomes character, forgetting actor. The play becomes reality, appears as reality. The actor has lost himself in the role. The actor has lost herself in the play. Is the actor ever disturbed by the play? By the role he or she plays or the roles that other plays? Huh? Can betray and be betrayed, can kill and be killed, but the actor is unscathed, isn't it? But somehow we identified in thought are lost in thought. It's a bit of a trance. This morning we called it miasma, a sort of a fog of past emanating from our own selves, an echo chamber with its own weather system. Who's the Peanuts character that the rain cloud or the dust always follows? Yeah. Is there one with a rain cloud too? That's Eeyore. Yes. Mirabai was looking for archetypes. I think we'll have to point her to Eeyore and Peanuts. So Andrew, are you seeing it this objectification? There's nowhere is there a place for shame in all of this. It's just a play. You could say that somehow awake in the dream, we recognize that we are figments, characters in the dream of God. In the mind of God, the dream of God, we are. So let me pass it back to you, Andrew, for what's next. What can you say from here, or what what wants further inquiry? Andrew or anyone?
No further inquiry questions from me at this time. I'll just say that it's very difficult to see from a certain position. It appears that the one in shame resists shameful action above anything. Appears that way, and yet it would seem that the compulsion from which shameful action arises is prior to that analysis, is from within. The whole thing is one lens, is one fabricated world. One could say maybe an interpretation of what's happening that is added on to experience is not essential to it. I can see it as this right now. And whenever I inquire from within that, there's this confusion of, well, why would shameful action arise? But again, I can see how it's all sort of one bundle added on, and I'll leave it at that. That's where I'm landing right now. So I feel like it's very helpful.
It's good. So let's just explore a little deeper how shame might possibly enter the scene. That in the I sense, the spark of I, now borrowed from the I as the I, the small I, the egoic I, the subject. This one perceives itself, as we said, as in the world and apart from the world, subject, object, and limited. And in, you see it so far? Subject, object, perceiving oneself as subject in the world and limited. Now must, imbued also with desire, a desire to not be limited, primarily, feeling limited, now must begin to navigate and transact. You see? Okay. Spark of the I is imbued, borrowed by subject, operating in a world of objects. As such, is limited, with a desire to not be limited. Of course, we all have this desire to not be limited, constricted, confined, controlled. We're all bucking against this sense of limitation. So in this desire to be unlimited, perceiving limitation, now it begins transacting in the world to get for me and mine. Still, there's no problem yet, right? There's no shame. There's just a play, right? Just like a dream, there's no problem. Row, row, row your boat. Right? So where does the shame come from? Maybe there's good reason for it. Take a look and see. Is there good cause for the shame? Subject perceiving itself in world, objects, traded we could say, traded the unlimited I for a limited I in order to have experience in time and space, arc of narrative. Huh? A play where there's something happening. No problem. Yeah, it's kind of funny. Shakespeare says, much ado about nothing. Huh? It's really kind of marvelous. But where does the shame arise from and the sense of suffering? So track it back to the desire to be unlimited, feeling limited. The subject moves out into the world and away from the original I, in a manner of speaking, right? Metaphorically, certainly psychologically. That I sense now venturing into the world of God's creation, God's own dream, and propelled by desire, limited, wanting to be unlimited. You could say turns its back on God in order to move into the world. Just like the prodigal son takes his inheritance, right? And moves out into the world of experience. So takes the spark of I as a limited I and moves into the world of experience. Maybe there's something, I don't know. Maybe there's some sense of loss, some sense of separation from, as we move out as the subject into the world, of leaving home. And some sense of limitation and a sense of not being enough and now separate and naked in the world. Feeling limited, transacting for everything that we get, beg, borrow, steal, earn, even, by merit, even. So it comes from this sense of separation. It comes from this sense of limitation. And from this sense of limitation and separation, we now need to apply what we call my will in order to compete in the world for what also is limited. Limited I, navigating in a world with limited resources, trying to get more and not lose what I have, right? Me and mine. Further and further ventured into the fractals or the kaleidoscope of objects in world. layer after layer, more and more lost in thought as thought on the screen of awareness, taking it all to be real rather than appearance, increasingly propelled by desire and fear, but maybe with some deep internal remembrance of not limited, of and under the constant abiding care and protection of God, of Father and Mother. And maybe it's out of this subtle reflection, a kind of a self-regret.
May I say something?
Mm.
I can see how you, in saying track it back to this desire to be unlimited, very helpful. I can see that is much closer to the root of this sensation than I think I've gone thus far. And that's where I'm sort of stopping right now, or I'm not able, seems to move through right now. Just except to say that it's very strange that it's as if the shame looks at this desire to be unlimited and how it manifests in the world through action, and has shame about that, about the movement from that confusion that one is that's the confusion that one is limited, feels limited, and then the action that arises out of that to feel unlimited. Shame looks at that and it has this weird feeling about it that it's shameful, and yet that in itself obviously comes from a sense of limitation and feeling like an independent separate self, which is just weird.
Yes. It has a flavor of the absurd, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But you see, this one with the deep memory of oneness, of unlimited Satchidananda, now in reflection on what I have done and what I have failed to do, huh? Right? Mea culpa, mea maxima culpa. Isn't this the penultimate expression of shame? Mea culpa, mea maxima culpa. What is born of confusion is confused, right? This is what it means. Father, please forgive them. They know not what they do. It's a state of confusion, of blindness, ignorance, misunderstanding, missing the mark. I think is one translation of sin that I heard, maybe from the Greek. I don't remember. Born of confusion. A blind man walks down the streets of New York. Do you say shame on you for not seeing, for bumping into me. No. No. The yogis are quite clear on this. It's called avidya, ignorance. Ignorance isn't exactly, I think, the right translation. It works, of course, but it's really not wisdom. Not true. Mm. What about this instead? Lord, forgive me. I knew not what I was doing. Huh? I was blind and somehow thought I could see. I didn't know and somehow thought I know. Huh? But a figment of your play, Lord, thought myself to be primary. This morning we had a powerful inquiry in what is it to surrender an eye for an eye? To surrender my eye for the eye in my eye, the I and I. Huh? The I and I. To surrender my I, my will for the I, God's will. You give your less, your limitation for his more. And here's, and the laughter comes from this, because on the recognition, having made this transaction, you realize that it cost you nothing. And you simply wake up from the appearance of well, see for yourself. Maybe also, I think sometimes maybe this seems philosophical. It is not. Maybe this seems heady. It is not. It is the furthest thing from head. You can't write it off as mental acrobatics. It actually is the recognition of all mental acrobatics that precede it, or proceed from it. In the surrender of me and mine, what we call my will, we come back home to the full care and protection of the mother, father. And even your problems are not your problem. Even your problems are not your problem. One more thing that I think is important to say about shame. When we are in the miasma of shame, we cannot hear, we cannot see, we cannot learn. Truly, as if the eyes are veiled by shame and the ears are clogged by shame itself. It's so simple. Mea culpa, mea culpa, mea maxima culpa. Okay, it's true. Of myself I did this. But please, Lord, please forgive me. I didn't know. In this posture, Lord, please, seeing it for what it was and how I was in it. I'll tell you personally, for myself, in the recognition of this, I fell to my knees, crashed to my knees, sobbing, mea culpa, mea maxima culpa. This comes on the recognition of all that I have done and all that I had failed to do. And taking a full responsibility insofar as I was who I thought I was, taking a full responsibility for that. And in that moment, Jesus will gently take you from your knees and say, no, no self-flagellation, no mortification, no horsehair, no shame. This isn't why I came, he might say. Did not come and free you so that you can now judge yourself. No. It is forgiven. With me, it is finished. This is the voice of the living God. It's finished. Was forgiven before even you said, Lord, please forgive me, for I did not know what I was doing. This is your great inheritance. This is what the living Lord, the living God says. This is true. This verily is true. This is what Shiva says, isn't it? It's from Guru Gita. So try that on for size. Come to the intersection where you see the full weight of misunderstanding. And is a beseeching for forgiveness, but in that recognizing that it was misunderstanding. And that really the same is true for everyone you have ever known, operating from this same misunderstanding. And they too are innocent. If you are innocent, they are innocent. And if they are innocent, you are innocent. So lay down the sword of blame. Lay down the gavel of judgment. Whatever you bind will bind you. Just remember, the blind man walking on the sidewalk in New York bumps into you. Do you scold him? Do you shame him? Even if you're there and you witness him like bumping into a fire hydrant and he's shaming himself, scolding his own self out loud, and you hear him, wouldn't you console him? Sir, I'm so sorry. I know it must be frustrating and painful, but how can you possibly blame for yourself for not seeing what you can't see? If you see the logic in it, you must afford yourself the same. You'll come to see it, the innocence, your innocence. And then in the culmination of the full return, the full recognition of the self, as I, it will be clear from this place that it never happened. It was just a dream. As Nisargadatta said, I was never born. He's not being clever in order to guide you. And then likely the body remains, the personality remains, the world of a different flavor, we might say, remains. And now you're in the world, but not of it. Like a A spider on its own web navigates freely, doesn't stick to the web. One more important thing to say, because I feel people are rapidly approaching this intersection in their own experience. And remember, the greatest temptations are saved for last. So be ready. And if you fail, you get to repeat the grade and come back and do it again. But better to be prepared and to get it right the first time. In the Upanishad, Katha Upanishad, the boy Nachiketa has audience with Lord Yama, the god of death. Yama. And he asked for the great boon, which is to know the truth. Lord Yama says, even the great sages of all time have difficulty with this. Instead, let me give you a kingdom, a vast kingdom with incredible wealth, and I'll let you live to 250 years old. I don't remember the details. And Nachiketa, a boy, says, but then I'll need employees to tend to my cattle. And I'll need managers to manage the employees. And eventually my 250 years will be up. And then what? In the end, at that final intersection, there is nothing the world can offer you that won't perish. It isn't really about morality at this point. It's about freedom. It's about joy. Morality comes, I think, as a part of that. Well, that's a topic too complex for now. But the whole thing is born of desire. Sense of limitation gives way to desire. Is itself fear and attraction and aversion, and all the drama ensues, and we also become lost in the drama. This is what we all aspire to wake up from: identification as subject. Whatever series of recognitions, of revelations, of mystical revelations, in the end it comes down to surrender into stillness and quiet. Shankara Karunakara Jagadishwara Parameshwara Shankara Karunakara Jagadishwara Parameshwara Shankari Karunakari Jagadishwari Parameshwari Shankara Karunakara Jagadishwara Parameshwara. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om peace, peace, peace. Remove your attention from that which does not please you. This will allow grace to intervene, to bring you something new. Clinging to the past, nothing new can enter. Empty, empty, empty. Om, om, om. Thank you, thank you. Love you. Out on a limb,